When you first get those results and they're not the results you want,
Yeah.
the last thing that you want to do is to be sitting with the judge and being like, tell me all the things you didn't like, or
yeah,
like,
I mean,
and so I think that face-to-face time where you really are like, where was I strong? Because I think that's also part of the score sheets is like, let's celebrate what makes you you and what makes you the person that they want to score on.
welcome to or welcome back to Coffee with April. My name is Patrick Rolfe, and this is a conversation with some amazing professionals and entrepreneurs in the coffee industry, sharing their perspective and experience. It's about integrity, quality, and the future. For this episode, we met up with Ben Putt during the Shanghai Coffee Festival, and Ben Putt is one of those people I've always wanted on the podcast. He's arguably one of the best Barista Cup competitors of all time, and also founder of Monogram Coffee Roasters in Canada. It was an absolute pleasure to sit down with him and pick his brain on competition and coffee roasting. Enjoy. Hi guys, we're in Shanghai. We're back at On Air, our long-term kind of partner here in China, and with me I have Ben. Hi. Which is super exciting. I talked about to my colleagues about this as well, and it's probably the first time I do this, and I'm actually a bit nervous. Which
Me too.
Usually, no, you're not nervous, but usually I would never be. But I mean, this is like in the land of competing, which I'm at least trying to be a part of. You're like the.
Oh, thanks.
It doesn't get much higher, right? To be fair,
Thanks
right?
very
I mean,
much.
you deserve a very, very high spot there, right? And it's super cool to have you here. We're going to talk a lot about competitions. We're going to talk a lot about coffee in general, basically whatever you want to talk about, which is super cool. And I think we're going to start from. I mean, you've been taking a break a bit from competing, right? Mm-hmm. You competed very intensely, did extremely well, and now you've been off for basically 2 years. What have you been up to?
Yeah, so I competed for 8 years in a row. So people only see me at the WBC.
Sure.
But and I think this is an important thing to talk about is prior to that. So the first year I competed, I won my region. I went to nationals, and I was like, I'm gonna do really well.
Yeah.
and then I didn't even make finals.
Okay.
And then I went back immediately and like started working again, and I won the regional again. And then I went to I made finals and like was very excited, and then I got second, and then I competed again,
Yeah.
And got second again, and it was with like a coworker of mine, and then I moved. I was living in a different city, moved back to Calgary, competed again with my business partner Jeremy. We were just colleagues at the time, and then he beat me. Mm-hmm. So I got second actually 3 years in a row in Canada before finally winning a nationals. So it's been like a very
What's the
journey.
drive there? I mean, you're obviously, I mean, you probably still are, but back then you were determined to win that competition, right? Or are you just competing for fun, or is it that like I'm gonna win, that's why I'm gonna push this?
I would say it's a couple things. I think that you have to be a bit competitive to compete. I think you need something to sort of wake you up in the morning for it. But a big thing for me is in the past few years in competing, like different ideas have emerged, and I actually think there's a lot of criticism of barista competition sometimes, but I think ultimately there are many ideas where the only stage where you can properly share them is a competition. Whether it's brewers or barista, you have 15 or 10 minutes where you have everyone listening to you and you can talk about anything you want. And so like, when I think of some of the things I've done in barista competitions, or I see people doing, and there's no way that idea could get out into the larger public space without barista competitions. There's just no way. Especially like I'm from Canada. If I had a new idea and I did it in our shop, Canada would know, and that's like, I don't know, not many people. And so to me, that's a big driver. If like I have an idea or something I want to talk about, I think maybe one day that won't be the ultimate platform for new ideas, but I think currently it still is.
Yeah. And going from these kind of initial years where you go second, and then you finally win. I mean, what made you actually win that competition finally, right?
Mm-hmm. I think I think there was a couple things. I think just like really taking judges' feedback. I think this was a hard one for me. I actually think it held me down for a while. Is when you first get those results and they're not the results you want.
Yeah.
The last thing that you want to do is to be sitting with the judge and being like, "Tell me all the things you didn't like," or like. I mean. And so I think that face-to-face time where you really are like, where was I strong? Because I think that's also part of the score sheets is like, let's celebrate what makes you you and what makes you the person that they want to score well, because that's part of it. And then also like, what parts do you need to work on? So I think it was working on that, and I think it was also just growth in the industry. I think that like one of the neat things about coffee is I think you're always growing. Like no one's ever fully formed. And so I think the years of competition have made me better at coffee. So I think it's been these little incremental growths.
Yeah, and if we rewind back to the very, very, very beginning, how did you end up in coffee in the first place?
Yeah, very randomly and almost unintentionally. So I was studying music at the time.
Okay.
I was dating a girl in a different city. One of us had to move. It was me. I had worked in a coffee shop that wasn't very good, but I had taught myself latte art. And then, so I worked in coffee, and it was one of these things where I just sort of stayed in it and started to feel like I was getting better and better. And then I didn't have this, lots of people have like a moment where they're like, this one coffee transformed me and I left my life behind. But it was almost sort of like one day I woke up and I was like working full time in coffee, training people, but then in retrospect, looking back on it, I think coming back to that, like no one's ever fully formed in coffee. I think I'm excited to have a job where I'll never feel like I got it.
Yeah.
Like I think there are some jobs out there where you can get to a point where you're like, I know exactly what I need to do, and this is going to be my life for the rest of my life. And I think coffee is always like, there's always different things you can pursue and different ways to sort of weave your life around coffee.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, now it's competing, it's roastery, it's everything, right?
Absolutely.
And as you say, coffee is complicated. I think people, especially in the competition world, but in general, like just on a daily basis, making tasty coffee continuously is not easy, right?
Yeah.
And that's really exciting, I think. That's a really interesting part of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but then you're competing, you're winning for the first time, which must be a pretty great feeling.
Oh, it was crazy. But it was really weird though too, because like I had been there like 3 times in a row, and I was so used to like the other feeling of losing.
You just assumed.
So like it didn't. Yeah, it felt horrible until the last moment. It's similar to like finals announcements too, where like it gets closer and closer, and then you're just like not quite
that
there.
Sucks.
But the first time you win a national, I think is very special.
It is for sure. I mean, and what happens? Because I've seen so many competitors that they go and they win their nationals and they just stop. Nothing works. I mean, we have two kinds of competitors here, where some people get super excited and they just go for it, maybe a bit too early, and they go to the Worlds and it's a bit disoriented, they don't really know what to do. And then you have the kind of competitor that just kind of, I won the nationals, that's really cool, everyone in my country thinks I'm really good. And then they don't remember that, oh shit, I'm going up against some really good people here, maybe I need to be better, right? So what was that process? I mean, did that, like the first process and also later on, what do you do from a national to the World Championship?
I think every country, it's a bit like currency in my mind, where every country has a conversion factor to Worlds. So like a country like Australia, the conversion factor is 1 almost, right? Like if you have a really good set at, like the level in Australia is so high, if you have a really good set, you can go to Worlds with a similar set. And I think the thing that you need to tell yourself, and I think this was something for me as well, is that in the early years of Canadian competitions, the conversion rate was not the same. And so you feel like you have a really good routine, and so you might keep it, but you really have to dig in and say like, is my coffee really outstanding? And also, is my idea really easy to understand? I think that's a huge one, is that especially like as any competitor from an English-speaking country, they're taking complicated ideas and using complicated words to present it, and then they go to an international competition where like it's amazing like that so many judges from all these different countries understand English, but they expect them to just get it right away. So they're talking super fast. They're using really complicated ideas. So I think that's another part of it is also converting it in terms of like the intellectual ideas.
Yeah.
Like this idea of, can you take something really complicated and can you make it simple in 15 minutes while you're making coffee and while they're drinking coffee? And I think that's a huge part of it too, that if your style of competition is, I have something important to say, you really have to make sure that people can understand it. Because I see this a lot where someone's like, I presented and the judges just didn't get my idea. They didn't know what I was talking about.
As a judge's fault that
that's not on them.
No.
Like if you can't make it make sense, that's not on them. That's on you.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of it, but also like really understanding like, how does my country stack up against worlds? Yeah. So like now I would say Canada, our conversion factor is much better.
Yeah. Especially barista, right?
Yeah, barista is very
How did Brewers go this year?
I can't remember what place David did. His coffee was very delicious though.
Yeah.
I think Brewers, we've had sort of ups and downs. Canada hasn't always had every competition.
Yeah.
We just started last year and this year are the first years that we are competing in everything. So I'm excited to see. Except roasting, we don't have roasting yet.
Would you ever venture out to like Coffee and Good Spirits and stuff like that?
Coffee and Good Spirits interests me because it seems like such a free-for-all in sort of, not in a bad way, but in that like you can really try almost anything. And like I also think that the thing that interests me most in Coffee and Good Spirits is coffee. There's like a set of flavors that we think taste good.
Yeah.
But then we enjoy drinks outside of that don't fit that at all. Like if you tasted notes in like a pu'er tea in a coffee, you would immediately discard it as defective.
Yeah, sure.
And so to me, the interesting thing about Coffee and Good Spirits is that you could make something with like a peaty whiskey or something like that tastes like a smoke bomb.
Yeah.
And it might actually do okay. So I think it would be interesting to play with flavor there. But I'm definitely not a good bartender, so like I have to worry about, like I just have like a blender for all my drinks.
Shall we back to a classic signature beverage? Let's just blend something.
Yeah, who wants some blended margaritas?
Yeah, sure. But where are we? I mean, so let's say we're in the world for the first time, and I mean, how difficult was that for you?
Competing in Worlds for the first time?
How big of a difference was that from, because you competed for a long time before that, right? Even if it was on a national level, but it's still, I felt pretty clearly this year that, I mean, going on a world stage, it's different.
It's very different.
I mean, also competing in Sweden, which is a tiny ass little country.
But Canada's not much bigger. I think one of the big ones was seeing just how much higher the level of coffee is.
Yeah.
I think that for me personally, the first year I competed, I had no illusions that I wasn't like I didn't think I was going to win Worlds. And so I think,
why not? Or was that not a?
I don't know. I think I wanted to win, but I think going in, my goal was more just to make semis. And I think that should be. I think this is also something that I've seen change. That in the past, I think everyone's goal was finals, where it's like. If you didn't make finals, you didn't perform the way you wanted. But I hope that the view can shift, because I think barista is so hard now that I think that semis is an accomplishment in and of itself. Yeah, and I actually think Brewers Cup, I know it would make the schedule busy. Brewers need semis. Brewers need semis.
We all know that, right?
If any WC reps are watching.
I think that's the one point we all have been discussing since last time. But it's getting too big, and it's time to get a semi. Yeah.
But I think I actually appreciated the fact that the first year I competed, winning wasn't my goal, because it kind of made it a more healthy experience, and it was easier to sort of deal with everything. So the first year I went to Worlds, I made semis, but I didn't make finals. I got 11th in the world, and so I actually sort of enjoyed that. And I don't know if you can intentionally go in knowing that you might not win, but I actually am appreciative that that wasn't my goal that year.
And then you move. How is it? It's World again the next year for you again?
Yeah, and Worlds again, that was the year Sessa won, and I got third.
Yeah.
And I that was a fun year, because I think Canada hadn't really been on the map in a while, and so it was neat to be up there, and it was very exciting, and that was a fun one.
How do you, if we fast forward a bit, how do you make the decision? Because I think a lot about that myself. Because competing for me it's also it's a short-term process where it's like you have this year and you're competing, and it's a long-term process. How long do I want to do this, and how much kind of stamina and energy and focus do I have? I mean, we're running companies as well. Yeah. It's difficult to do both. Where did the decision not to or take a break come from?
It was multifaceted. So one was just comp takes a lot of time away from family. Yeah. And so although coaching is still taking a lot of time away, but we didn't see that one coming. So it was nice to have some time off where I could actually just focus on other parts of my life. Yeah. Because I think if competition consumes you, I think anything consuming you is probably not a good idea.
No.
I think that if you compete many years in a country, I think an important part of competing is that you are an ambassador for your country. And so I think if you compete too much, I think you lose some diversity in terms of representation of your country.
Sure.
Yep. And so I think that I was coming up to a point where I think have always been in Canada, people have always been really supportive of me. But I do think that I was coming up sort of to my time to take a step back for a little bit. And then the advantage out of it that I didn't really see coming is enjoying coaching so much.
Yeah.
So the way I got into coaching, I was like working an early shift at the cafe. It was like 7 a.m. or something, and I get a Facebook message from this random Swiss guy that I had met once in Seattle saying like, hey, I just won my national, would you like to coach me? And my thing has always been that if someone asks me for help, I'll like try and help them. And so I said like, I'll just have to ask my wife. She said yes, and then that's sort of like been my foray down to coaching, and it's been really like amazing and super interesting. And that guy was Matthew, who got third.
He's done fairly okay.
Yeah,
since
yeah.
That.
He got third in Amsterdam and 6th in Boston, so he did quite well.
That's pretty amazing, I would say. So then, I mean, and I mean, the question you guys want to know, I want to know. I already asked him. Let's ask him again. I mean, are you coming back to competing?
Yeah. So the people that compete a lot, I think it's always sort of in them. A thing for me that drives me in competition is this idea of having something that drives you beyond just being competitive. And so the past 2 years off, getting to see so many great competitors and ideas, there's definitely some ideas bouncing around. So it is on my horizon to take another swing. The interesting thing is like, I think another thing for lots of competitors is realizing that you could compete again and never make worlds again. And I think it's both like, it definitely keeps you on top of things, but it's something that I think often in competition there's this thing where we all set our sights on Worlds so much that it's like, what do I want to present at Worlds? And I think making sure that you've really lined up like what are the steps that are going to get you to Worlds, and like focusing on that one task. So like if I did compete this year, regionals is what I need to do, and the nationals is what I need to do. And also like keeping that as a goal rather than just like I talk to lots of competitors where they're like, yeah, I'm going to do this at WBC, and I'm like, so you won your nationals? And they're like,
no.
Oh, no.
I know. I mean, focus on what's in front of you, right? It's true also when let's say you come to the World Championship. I mean, you need to really take it day by day, right? Yeah. You can't really be in the final. I mean, I'm a big believer personally that if you compete, why not try to win? Yeah. Right? For sure. But it's still maybe you win by focusing on what's in front of you, right? And not what lies ahead. And I mean, competing can't be, we all want to win. That's not really, I mean, of course we do, right? But it can't be, it's also kind of cool and fun, and you learn a lot from not winning as well, right? Yeah. I still argue, and I do this every year, the best space in coffee is backstage in a world competition.
Absolutely.
That's where you learn the most. That's where the best coffee professionals are more than often. That's enough inspiration to carry you over the for the remaining part of the year, and I think that becomes really interesting, right? Yeah. But I mean, you do more than competing as well, right? We're talking roastery. I mean, we're in Shanghai now to brew coffee at the Shanghai Coffee Festival.
Yeah, we're almost booth neighbors,
which is also really cool, actually. But I mean, how do you balance all of this?
Yeah,
how do you make that work?
So something that I'm super thankful for is Monogram is a team of 3 owners actually.
Okay.
So it's myself, Jeremy, and Justin, and we all met through coffee and decided that we had common vision and common goals and common values, and so started Monogram together. So I do think that a big part of why I can do what I can do is that we have that team of 3 that can balance things when I'm gone and carry things, and so I think that's been huge for my ability to compete, and even just the ability to build a small business where like I know the things that I'm good at and that interest me. So like, because I think that's part of it too, like what do you want to do are different than the things that like Justin's good at and interest him, and the things that Jeremy's good at and interest him. So I think we've built a more complete like sort of business by having our 3 skill sets all together. So I think that's been huge in my ability to compete. Like I don't know how, I don't know how you do it. I guess you're just better than, you have the skills of three much smaller men.
Yeah, April being a tiny company, I think a lot of people competing is one thing, but competing, running a company at the same time it is a bit of a challenge, right?
Yeah,
it is. But I think it makes both parts better, right? And for me, competing is so much about what do we do every day, right? I mean, the Brewers Championship, for example, that was an interpretation of what we do and how we brew coffee, how we work with coffee, right? We made a brewer and all of this, but we mainly made a brewer because I want to brew April coffee on my own brewer, because it doesn't make sense for me to try to adapt my own coffee to someone else's brewer, right?
Yeah.
So it was a very natural process, but it's still very, very kind of difficult. But I'm personally always very interested in why in the world start a company? Because starting a company takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, it's a lot of focus. It takes you, at least for some time, away from coffee.
Yeah.
Maybe not when you're 3, but at least for me, I realized that I've had a few years where, I didn't compete my first year, for example, because I was too busy. I couldn't deal with it, right? So why would anyone put yourself through that kind of stress that comes with that?
You've touched on something very true. So actually, out of the 3 owners, I actually didn't want to start a business. For that exact reason, where it's like starting a business actually has nothing to do with coffee. Like you could start a business in anything and never really work with whatever product you're doing. And so coffee to me has always been my main interest. And so there were 2 things that I didn't want to do. Like the business side of things had no interest for me, and I actually didn't want to. I'll come full circle. This sounds bad, but I didn't really want to manage people because coffee was more of an interest for me. The idea of knowing that I could work in coffee for the rest of my life, I think this is a huge international problem, is that there's still not a great way for someone to stay in coffee for a really long time unless they own a business or they've received one of those spots at the top of a pyramid of jobs where they're like a green buyer or a trainer or a roaster. And so starting a business for me sort of guaranteed that I could stay in coffee. But then after that, the things that I feared and dreaded actually became some of my favorite things. I think we're still working on it, but I think Monogram has created these little communities and neighborhoods of customers and employees. And I'm proud of what we've done for employees. I think we're still trying to do more there. But the people side of things, both with like partners and customers and employees, is one of the things I'm most sort of proud of, and is one of my favorite things. So the irony is the thing that like scared me about opening a business is one of my favorite things now.
Yeah, okay, that's really interesting. I mean, that changes as well, right? And you learn, I think, competing as with running a business teaches you a lot about yourself, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of really lessons to learn. We had a short break here, and we talked a little about why we couldn't find these guys in Europe, or at least as much as we want to. And then you say we don't focus so much on wholesale, and I think that's super interesting.
So we haven't. So we are starting to now, but when we first started roasting, we were fairly passive in terms of who used us. And I actually think it may be...
As in that was a selective process, whereas we want our coffee to be featured in a certain way?
It was sort of like, the way it worked is if you approached us, we'd help you out. So it wasn't like, we won't serve to you because you're not going to do a good job with the coffee. Like a big thing for us is we are offering training to anyone that is, like if you use just us on your bar. So like we can't train someone that buys like £1 a week from us or something like that. But if you're using just us on our bar, we'll train you no matter what.
Yeah.
So it wasn't about like which bars are better and which are worse. The big thing for us is that when we first started, the people that knew Monogram and understood our values and shared them came to us. So it was like if we had a roastery, this obviously works within your country. You can't assume it's going to work internationally.
Sure.
But the people that sort of, and I even see that with something like April, where I think a lot of your customers, at least in my perception, know what you're about. They know the coffee you're producing, and they want to buy in.
Yeah.
And so the initial like 2 years of Monogram were sort of just done that way, where if someone liked our coffee, liked who we were as a business, they'd buy it, and it actually worked really well because basically there's no sell, right? It's just like, oh, you like the coffee, we'd love to sell it to you. And so I think the viability of a business eventually requires some active sales, so we're moving in that direction. It may be slowed our growth a little bit, not to have someone like pounding the pavement giving out samples. But when I think of the group of cafes and like home baristas and stuff like that drink our coffee, it's this neat little community because they bought into Monogram even before they purchased coffee, which I think is a neat sort of customer base to start with.
Yeah. How big are you guys? I mean, what are we talking here? Roughly.
What are we roasting a week, Jeremy? We gotta have an unseen voice in there.
You don't have to like specify exact numbers here, but I mean, we're talking. I just have no clue.
I can't remember what it is in kilos, but we're like.
I mean, how big of a roast machine do you guys have?
We roast on a 35.
Okay, which model?
Oh, this is actually interesting. We have a Lorraine as well. So this is an interesting thing actually to talk about. Is that the roastery is actually Lorraine's great. Yeah,
they are basic.
We actually roast in like a collaborative roast space. So when we started the roastery with another company, so we roast there, the other company roasts there, and then other people will bring their coffee to roast. So actually, and we help oversee some of the roasting. So I think there's currently 6 companies that roast out of there.
That's amazing.
It's really fun. So some of it is like they give us green coffee, we design the profiles. Actually, the Canadian Brewers Cup champion from last year, he just started his business, and so he actually is roasting out of there as well. So it's this neat little hub of people. So we have a 35, but we basically roast 2 days a week, and then the rest of the roastery is.
That's amazing. I mean, that's what we do as well, basically, right? We don't have a 35, but we roast in a similar setup. Right?
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a very smart way to start a business. For many reasons.
It's a good way to get a Lorraine because it basically lets you pool resources. Because I know, like, I look at our roastery now, and given the resources we had when we first started, there's no way we could have had what we had. It would have been like a closet. One bag of spot coffee.
Definitely, no. And that initial phase is so important because that's where you set the pace and you set the framework for the whole company, right?
Yeah.
So if you have something extremely expensive, you need to start paying off, or whatever financial stress you're in, you're gonna end up doing some questionable coffee because you need to pay rent, which is fine, and I respect that. But it makes it complicated, right? So I think that's a really smart way to do it.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're going to wrap this up a bit because we have a coffee shop to open, or Leo has. But I mean, we need to just quickly, because we started this, I'm going to do a bit of promotion here, like athlete program or competitive program, right? And I think that one of the things that I'm frustrated about now, but not before, but when I started to compete, I spent so much time doing stupid shit.
Yeah, I've been there too.
Where I got no results, I got very frustrated. I was almost close to like leaving coffee because I thought it was so shit. At least leaving competitions for good. So what would you recommend? I mean, you have more experience than most. Like you're competing for the first time. What should you think about? What are the basics?
Yeah, I think a big thing and something that I'm hoping to see change, and I actually think what you're doing is huge for the industry, is that in the past, knowledge of competitions has followed money, and I think that's just sort of natural in any industry. Is that in the past, often the way to learn about comp was like you had to hire a very expensive coach, And I've done coaching for money. I've also done coaching for free. But I think something for a first-time competitor is find the people that are sharing information like you, and really like dive into it. And then also don't be afraid to try and reach out to someone. I think I should have done this more in the past, where like if you email a barista and ask them like one question, they'll probably answer it. And if they don't, like, I don't know, you just wasted 30 words, but it doesn't really matter.
I mean, you're the best example, right? Matthew just sent you a text over Facebook, and then he has 2 world finals after that, right?
Yeah.
So that's a great example of what can happen if you actually just ask a
No,
question.
I think people don't try it enough, where it's just like, you should just ask someone. It could be something really simple, and I think the community is really nice. I don't think that it's anything sinister that the like lots of people that do well have the money to buy really expensive coffee and to hire expensive coaches. But it's not that those expensive coaches are like, don't talk to me unless you've got money in your hands. Like a good example is Pete Licata's coached many people.
Yeah.
But if I've gone up to him many times and asked him a question, and he always answers it, and it's always honest, and so I think we're often afraid to ask.
Yeah, I have the same experience where the people, let's put it like this, the people you want to hear from that are very good at what they do, they always share.
Yeah.
The people that don't share are usually people you don't really want to hear from anyway. Kind of true, right?
Yeah, I think so.
People that are really good, they're very confident in it, and they
Yeah.
like to also kind of spread that, which is super cool. Last question, the future. I'm always interested in the future. Like, what's the game plan? What's up next? I mean, apart from competing and all of this, right? But you have a roastery.
Yeah.
You're one of the best baristas in the world, arguably, repeatedly. What has the future in hold?
There's a lot of things that Monogram has on the go. We're looking at a couple potential spots in the future, trying to do more wholesale internationally. I think we really love to share coffee, and festivals like this always fire all 3 of us up quite a bit, because it's neat getting to meet the community. And I think Canada is so isolated that I think doing more stuff like that is a neat way to sort of feel like you're part of the global coffee community.
Sure.
Yeah. I think I've enjoyed coaching so much that even if I compete this year, there's still some people I think I'll be coaching. We'll try and do double duty.
From me.
Have you seen? Have you watched Mrs. Doubtfire?
No.
It's this Robin Williams movie where he's dressed as he's pretending to be a woman.
Yeah, sure.
No, I'm gonna come full circle on this. Don't worry, this will take the rest of the time. But he's dressed as a woman. He's in 2 meetings and he has to change outfits to go to the next meeting. And I feel when I coach and compete, I feel like it would be a bit of a Mrs. Doubtfire. Go watch the movie.
I heard.
You can find it on Netflix.
You
probably.
will understand everything.
Yeah, this whole video makes sense if you watch Mrs. Doubtfire.
That's so funny.
But mostly
I get that though. I mean, that's also, diversifying, it makes you better. Right?
Totally.
It really does. If you can coach on a world level and compete on a world level and have a world level roastery at the same time, it's just going to sum up to something really good, right?
And the other interesting thing that I've been trying to do the past couple of years, but haven't fully hit it, is I think it would be very interesting if you had a few people that were either coaching or competing or had companies with competitors. I think maybe April Athletes can do this as well, where at a competition you had a hub of people, just a hive of you taste this, what do you taste? Because suddenly you have all these global palates tasting something, global ideas on something. So my goal with coaching sometimes is, can I get everyone I'm helping in the same room to help each other? Because I also think that would be an interesting way to coach eventually, where it's less about what I think and what I want people to do, but it's can I connect this guy to this girl, and then they're gonna work together, and they're gonna sharpen each other's skills, and it's more just and I think that's similar to what it seems like April's doing, where it's more just can you build a team that can go crush it? I think would be really neat.
I mean, you need to. The team is better than the individual.
Yeah.
Always, right? And part of what we're doing with the athletes is also, we're helping them, but they help each other, right?
Yeah.
And they help us. The amount of knowledge I get and what I learn from them is pretty amazing as well, right? So it is this kind of, we're trying to get full circle in the sense that we get kind of an organic growth of just competition knowledge, right? Where hopefully everyone will be, venture into winning everything. Most likely not, right? But it's a really interesting thing. I'm going to ask you one more question. I always do this. I always say we're done, and then I have all of these more questions. Some people are going to give me shit for this, but I'm going to still say, why isn't there more innovation in Barista Cup? And I'm not talking, I mean, we know the competition structure and format is a bit outdated. It needs to be, you know, someone needs to do something. Changing the milk beverage is not enough.
Yeah.
But still, if I look at brewers in Boston and barista in Boston, and I ask myself, where is the innovation?
Yeah.
That's in brewers.
Yeah.
I'm going to argue that, right?
Yeah.
I didn't see anything new in barista that got me crazy excited, even if they're all amazing, coffee's delicious, right? But outside of that.
Yeah, I think, so out of the 3 years I competed, I would say that I did new things in 2 of those years. So,
I mean, you're sifting in Korea.
Oh yeah, so I sifted in Korea.
I was sitting there, what are you doing? That's amazing.
I sifted in Korea. I did like the freeze distillation in Korea as well. And then the first year when I competed in Seattle, I removed.
Were you the first one to bring that on stage almost?
Yeah,
like
I created it. And this is where it comes to sharing though. So like I could have kept that as
I mean, that fundamentally changed the milk beverage category like forever. If you don't do that, if you don't know what that is, there must be a video on YouTube this summer.
No, there's like I did a walkthrough on Instagram.
Haven't you done a YouTube video?
I haven't done anything. I shared the idea and then people ran with it, which is awesome.
Video.
I know, I need to.
Right? I mean, but amazing. If you don't know what that is, check it out.
It's freeze distillation. But the reason I'm saying all these things is that those ideas were the top of a pile of dead ideas. So I think that's the hard part for innovation in barista is you have to, I've made so much disgusting stuff in comp to get to that like one good idea. And I think I think barista, that's what's really hard is going through all that sort of terrible stuff. And I think it's really hard. I think many new things, like there's new things in processing, and I think that innovation in barista is still out there. I actually don't even blame the format. You get, like, it's fairly wide open.
There's nothing wrong with the format. I'm fine with it.
So I think that it will still come along. The problem is that in order to do, this is the other interesting thing, with the exception of like the milk, which now everyone does, there's not an advantage.
Yeah, sure.
There's not an advantage of it.
That's a new thing the first year, yeah.
You actually have to do innovation simply for the love of it in barista, because I actually don't know. I think I've finaled due to some of those innovations, but I don't know if it's a harder concept for the judge to immediately grasp. I don't know if you necessarily will win because of that, because you're trying to fit a routine into a box that might not perfectly fit it.
Yeah.
And so I think you truly have to do it for the love of it. So maybe the one way maybe the competition format could change is if innovation was rewarded more, because it's not on them.
We talked about that with the brewers as well, right? Where making your own brewer is a nice thing, and I believe that can make the coffee taste better. But no one cares.
Totally.
There's no judge that will give you a higher score because you made your own brewer. They will say it's nice that you made your own brewer, but we can't really fit it in the score sheet, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to consider. I think we're going to wrap up because we can talk for a very long time. This has been really nice. And
thanks so much for having me.
A part of it.
Yeah, big honor.
Thank you guys as well.
Yeah.
From us here at April, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share with your friends, family, and colleagues. Thank you.